Welcome to League Night, everybody. We are here in studio. Well, I'm in my studio. I'm joined all the way to the West Coast by Dion Arlen of Stat Mando. We are excited to have you. I'm sure you're going to bring some cool information for us. We're also joined by Josh Graham up in New Hampshire, all over the United States. We're going to be talking about the United States Disc Golf Championship that just took place. In fact, Ben, go ahead and throw up some scenics for us. I want to talk about the fact that we're coming into this 24th edition of the United States Disc Golf Championship, and this 24th edition did not fail us. We also had the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship, the Women's Disc Golf Championship. It is a major non-major, not to be confused by the major US Women's Disc Golf Championship. So we've got a lot of things happening here at Winthrop University. And we had titles crowned for both the FPO, again, Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship, and the MPO, or as the tournament likes to call it, the championship. So it's one division, one champion. We had that happen. The course was looking epic. We're going to talk about that later. The property, the fans were out in masses. I think they had numbers over 3,000 is what I'm hearing. So let's go ahead and jump over to talking about the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship. Now, this event brought all the competition. I mean, all the FPO competitors were there, and they were treating it as if it was a major. Now, that's not the fact. That's not what it is at this point, but that's how they're treating it. And Josh, I want you to go ahead and talk about what happened in the final round here at Throw Pink.
Yeah, and as some of these highlights begin to play, I'll also react a little bit to your transition, right? So this event ran alongside USDGC, which I think is a big deal. Does have a relatively short history, but it was immediately given prestige for the fact that the players, think about some of the facts, Matt, they qualified to be there. The best players showed up. It's played at the famous Winthrop Arena course, and the event is treated as such. And, you know, most, if not all, the FPO players treat it like a major. And several of our top players came out firing like it mattered. So Missy Gannon, last year's winner, came out with the first round hot round, with Katrina Allen and Sarah Holcomb sitting one stroke back. And to most of our surprise, KRISTIN TATTAR, 9 strokes off the lead after round 1. Katrina Allen laid down a hot round 2 and took the lead and ultimately never looked back. But if she had, she would have seen KRISTIN TATTAR picking up ahead of steam, but she would ultimately just fall short of the big comeback, never getting closer than 2 strokes in that final round. Katrina just played a little more consistent, gaining strokes over KRISTIN on both putting and on OB strokes. Look, KRISTIN's poor first round just set her in the hole too much. We also saw a fun and exciting push by Owen Scoggins. Always exciting and fun to see her perform, but she faded fairly hard at the end. And another great throwing weekend by HENNA BLOMROOS. Always wonders, makes you wonder where her ceiling could be. But on this weekend for Katrina Allen, look, with 2 Elite Series wins, she also has a Silver Series win, and now the Throw Pink, which certainly feels like a major championship. She'll mark down 4 wins this season. Congrats to Katrina Allen. It was exciting seeing the FPO play on this course. Always an exciting competition, which we'll talk about again later. Congrats to her on taking down this event with really a field of the best competitors. So let's hear what Katrina had to say following the round.
We saw a lot of swings throughout the week with people up and down and just trying to stay in the moment. And yeah, it would be silly to think that I wasn't thinking about KRISTIN half of the round and what she's doing and how embarrassing it would be to blow up this lead that I've played great all week. And that's why, there's so many different things I do to just stay in the moment, really.
Continuing on, let's go ahead and look at the MPO recap highlights. So MPO brought the fire. We had 4 really in it for contention on the final round, round 4. This was an MPO battle for the ages. Those 4 players were Macbeth and Burr. They were 1 back from Heimberg and 2 back from the leader, Antila. Out of the gate, Antia and Burr snag the birdie while Macbeth and Heimberg take the lackluster par. Hole 2, everyone pars out. By hole 4, Gannon Buhr has scored 3 birdies. By hole 4, he scored 3 birdies, and he sits at the top tied with Antila. So while anyone on the lead card could still win it, I'm going to start to focus in here with my talk on the impressive play from both Antila and Buhr. So hole 5, 6, and 7, Buhr and Antila get the birdies and still remain tied until hole 8, where Antila scores his 4th birdie in a row to take a 1-stroke lead. Antila goes on to score birdies on the next 3 holes, and by hole 11 has scored 8 birdies. By hole 11, guys, 8 birdies for Nicklaus. That's incredible. So Buhr in that same stretch scored 7 birdies and 1 eagle, finding himself 1 back from Antila. So here's the back and forth of birdies, the eagle, incredible play. This is what you want to see in a final round for the championship. They push hole 12 with pars, and then Buhr does on hole 13 what he later goes on to say thought took him out of contention. He takes a double bogey compared to Antila's par. So now Buhr is 3 back from a share of the lead, and Antila's playing confident and with passion. But the very next hole, Buhr hits a putt from way out to secure the birdie, and Antila misses from short to take the bogey. The pressure was real. So Buhr is back in it and only 1 stroke back going into hole 15. Buhr goes on to birdie hole 15 and 16. Antila goes into the famous hole 17 Island Green. They're tied. They both stick the green, but Buhr steps up and hits the putt from outside the circle, forcing Antila to hit his putt to match it. Going into hole 18, and Antila misses his putt. Buhr has the advantage going into the final hole. Both Buhr and Antila place their shots perfectly into the middle of the fairway, and Antila throws his shot near bullseye. Now, gentlemen, in that scenario there, were you running through all the factors of what Gannon Buhr could like possibly do? Like if he goes OB, he loses it. If he lays up, he pushes for a playoff. If he goes for it, he wins. He had 3 different scenarios, and they were all possibilities from whatever throw he did. He was able to secure it, hitting the bullseye, hearing the crowd erupt. Let's go to Gannon's interview now.
I didn't think this was possible. This is my first term I ever watched, and it's crazy. I think birdied the last 5 holes after I double bogeyed. I thought I was out of it at that point. I never gave up, made a couple huge clutch putts. Nicklaus is a fantastic competitor, and he brought us all today, and that's insane. I just prayed this morning so much that whatever happened would happen, but I knew my time was coming, and you know, this has got to be the best moment of my life so far. This is insane. All the fans, it means so much, and I can't believe it, honestly. I love all you guys so much. And
all right, so Gannon Buhr takes it down. He shouts out his closest competitor, Nicklaus. Now, it must be an interesting thing to have Paul Macbeth and the likes of Calvin Heimberg playing on your card, and you're showing them how to get it done. I heard today in a press conference with Gannon Buhr that he says he now sees himself as good as Paul and Calvin. The fact that he can beat them has set a new tone for his career. Maybe it'll come easier. Is what he's alluding to. So let's talk about Gannon Buhr. I'm going to open it up for you guys. We're not talking so much his age at this point, but has he reached his ceiling? Is the potential higher for Gannon Buhr? What do you think, Josh?
Well, so it depends how you define ceiling. You mentioned age. A 17-year-old has not realized their full potential, but I guess the question is more about whether or not we think he will do that, right? That's the point. So, and there are a lot of factors. Do you remember being 17? Now it's hard to compare my 17-year-old self to Gannon because I wasn't accomplishing things like him, right? But there's still a lot of growing up to do, and I mean that in the best sense. He certainly represents himself as a mature young man, but what does he value? What interests him? How much is he getting paid? Does that shift, right? How he plays, how the tour itself evolves. But Matt, you can't go much higher than winning a major. But in the end, I think he will have better years than he did this year. And so, maybe in some ways I would say, no, he hasn't reached the ceiling. And I bet you he wins, more majors, more Elite Series events. I think his comments about gaining confidence and experience, and for Gannon at this point, experience both losing big events and winning big events. That is what makes a champion. He seems to have it. And so I would say he's, starting to reach his ceiling, but there's more to go.
So Dion, there's an interesting way to look at this when it comes to ceiling. Are we talking about his potential successes, or are we talking about his actual skill on the course? But what do you have as a reaction as he reached his ceiling, Dion?
Yeah, so I was at LVC earlier in the year there with Evan, where they're at Stat Mando. And as the final round is playing out, Evan, asks me the question, does this kid have what it takes? And I emphatically said yes. And I will stick to that answer for a long time to come until he proves me otherwise. Gannon's the real deal. And he proved it with a major win. And he joins an elite set of players who have accomplished that. There's very few people who can do what Gannon did, and to do it at so young. And you said the point is not his age, but what I'll say is the point is to do it so young in his career. He's got another 20 years of competing in front of him. So if you're asking about what the ceiling is, you get out of the conversation of can this kid win big, and you ask the question, how many times is this kid going to win big? And to that I say, a lot of times. So the ceiling is still out there.
I'm pretty sure, and we'd have to go back into the archives of the show, but I'm pretty sure back in the very first few episodes, like you said, coming out of Las Vegas Challenge, my reaction was this kid is going to win many world championships. Now, he hasn't done it, but he just won his first major, and that's a good step in the right direction. Everyone knows, and he said it himself, this is as hard to win as the world championship. He feels very satisfied.
Yeah, and Matt, I think the reason why we all react this way as well is it's on the back of a fairly consistent, strong season overall, right? So there's nothing that evidences this being a fluke. Obviously, the way it went down as well, coming out with one of the best final rounds in a major event ever recorded, and the way the last few holes went down where you had to execute under pressure. Right. And again, to me, the fact that he actually had several events this year that ended up on the losing side, that experience is also an investment. Not the kind people like to experience, but losing, you learn a lot from that. And it seems that he has. And so this is just exciting.
So let me unpack that for an extra second, because Josh, I agree with what you're saying. When he was stepping up to his approach on 18, I was getting post-traumatic stress of his approach at Vegas, because it was the exact same scenario. Yes. If he nuts that layup, right, puts it right under the basket, then he gets to tap in for the win. And he didn't. He threw it out of bounds and he lost. You could argue, right, and obviously hypotheticals can go any way you want to, but by losing LVC, he wins USDGC. Because if USDGC was the first time that he was put in that scenario, or I should say, having played himself into the position to be in that scenario at LVC, gives him the edge for this tournament, because he'd already been there and he knew what it felt like to fail, and this time he executed. So
there is something to be said about experience on the course and earning your way. I can remember the same thing happening for Eagle McMahon, both out in Australia for that major, as well as I saw it at Maple Hill once, where the experience and the nerves overwhelming situation that those provide, and then going on to be successful. I think we would all agree that Eagle McMahon is very successful at this point as well. Gannon Buhr, I don't think we're good. I think now it's almost too late to buy on him now. We should have bought on him last year, which I think some of us did, but he's going to keep going up from here for sure. So let's talk.
What's crazy is, only a second year on tour, which I know we've referenced, but I mean, that's just, we saw him play a little bit before that, but really last year was the first time doing a tour, and it's barely a tour for him. And what I mean by that is in and out, like balancing high school, obviously during the summer, a lot more on the road, but I don't know. It's impressive. And, Niklas also fairly young, not as young as Gannon. And we've seen some other young players starting to shine. I wonder, you see the word era on the screen. you don't always recognize, right, when eras change, because usually they don't change on a dime. There actually is kind of a phased transition. And so I don't think we're out of any, current era, but you may be starting to see that slight shading of overlap of, hey, this is the next generation, right? And I think that leaves a lot to be excited about.
Disc Golfer Magazine ran an article, and this is probably in 2010 or 11, I want to say. So forgive me for not having a great memory on this one. And it said, "The Young Guns of Disc Golf." Anyone know who was on the cover of that article?
Probably a couple of our best players ever.
Paul Macbeth, Greg Barsby, Paul Ulibarri, and Nicola Castro. They're all sitting together on a card, and the photo is all four of them together, and it says "The Young Guns of Disc Golf." So, if that's what we're talking about, then yes, Gannon plus some of the other guys are shifting and taking over the era. We know what to expect from that.
Okay, so you just brought up the age as far as our youngest competitors. Some of them were the best and now are considered the best of the best. Let's talk about age 17. What does this mean for the sport? Because I've been involved in the sport for a lot of years, started an organization called Kids Disc Golf. We watched the best. We followed Gannon Buhr hitting 1,000 rated by age 14. We've been watching juniors come up through the sport for years. World championships are selling out in seconds with competitors trying to get that chance at a title. You're seeing them now join the Pro Tour. Is this what we should come to expect? Are we going to see the trending age move down towards this zone? What do you think, Dion?
Yes is the short answer, and that's consistent what you see with other sports. Athletes younger and younger who get exposed to high-level play at earlier and earlier ages and have the model in front of them to execute against get better and better younger in their career. So that's true across all of sports, right? And so disc golf has finally hit that peak. When I started playing, I was 17. I was Gannon's age, and I don't think I saw a professional player throw of long distance backhand until I witnessed Avery Jenkins in 2004, right? So, it took me a year of playing before I even saw what a pro looked like. And, I love the clip of Gannon on the tee of 18 at Winthrop at age, or in 2015, right? Emulating his heroes, and now flash forward, he's winning. The fact that that exists as an opportunity means that more younger players will be at the higher level, and that's what we can expect.
Yeah, Josh, any differing opinions there or reactions?
No, just to kind of finalize it. This is what Dion mentioned other sports, and I'm just talking more the lighthearted aspect of. You mentioned that video in 2015, so I don't know the actual date, but right, he was roughly 10 years old, and this that could not have happened in disc golf a decade or two ago, because the age of the sport, right, was not old enough for you to see that type of thing happen. But go to any other of our major sports and you see it all the time, right? You see pictures of kids playing Little League World Series and they say, one day I want to pitch in the big leagues, and they are, and they're an ace, right? Or, the same thing with any of the other sports you can kind of go through. And so it's neat to see our sport starting to have those moments where you have these kids saying, hey, this looks like this could be a thing. And, not all of them are going to obviously turn into any type of Gannon Buhr, right? Those are the elite. They're still the minor percentage of the players, but the fact that more of them are going to flood the system in a good way, we are going to see more start to show up. That's awesome.
Okay. Talking about Gannon, this will be our last topic on Gannon, which we could do a whole show at the incredible performance of Gannon. 100% circle 1X. That means he did not miss a putt in the final round except for one putt, and it was in circle 2, and it was an obstructed hole 13 where he took the double bogey. If you can recall, it's the basket surrounded by trees on 2 of the sides, leaving small gap openings. If you don't line up perfectly, it obstructs your putt. He missed from about 40 feet on that. That was it for final round 2. Every other putt he hit. That's incredible. I'm thinking about, we always say drive for show, putt for dough. Is that what he did here to take $25,000 home? You guys think putting was the keys to his success? What do you think, Dion?
Well, it certainly was necessary. He shot a 1090 round, and as Josh alluded to, that's the second highest round to win a major, or final round performance to win a major ever, after Ricky's 1097 Australia Open win. So it is exactly what it took. And you could say that the C1X 100%, C2 75% is a good stat in any condition, but to do it to win a major is absolutely unfathomable. So certainly played out that way this time.
I think we saw his skills on display for sure. And I think this is what he's capable of all of the time. And as he said, he's as good as Paul or Calvin. I don't think he's trying to say he has the same history, obviously, or legacy, but he's there and he's ready to beat them whenever he needs to at this point. Josh, any final thoughts on?
Yeah, well, he doesn't think there's a throw that he cannot execute that some of the other elite players can execute, right? So that's what he means by I'm good enough, is I can go out there. And as I've said several times during this evening show, the experience is the big part, because he already knew he has the shot, and now he knows he can do it under pressure, because there's only one way to find out, and it's to actually do it. And he's done it. And once you realize you can do it, you say, why couldn't I do it again? And that's when it really gets exciting for these top players to really come out and push. And, Matt, you mentioned the throw for show and putt for dough. I mean, certainly that happened. But, if you actually look, Gannon really teed to green, was second in the field. And so he really drove exceptionally well, which we're not surprised to see Gannon do it. And putting, he was actually fifth gained in the putting stat, which is still good. But to me, it's putts like you're about to see on the screen. It was the putts that, when it mattered, because every player, even your top ones, are going to miss some putts during a 4-round event. The way the story unfolds, the point in time does matter in the tournament, right? And in hole 14, as you just saw on the screen, mattered big time. He hits a big putt. Paul hits a big putt. Nicholas, his primary competitor at this point, steps up and misses what some might consider to be a drop-in. And it's those moments where the putting for the dough really came through. We saw it again on 16 from a knee. Hole 17, a really gutsy putt from circle 2. And yeah, it was just exciting to see down the stretch. It was really those last 9 holes of putting that was exciting.
Yep, that was the difference for sure. Had Nicholas hit his putts, he would have been in it to win it. And he was in it to win it, but he would have had probably the lead had he matched the putts. But Gannon came through. Speaking of Nicholas, let's move over into our segment on the European notables for this season. Specifically, not talking only about USDGC. Let's go ahead and bring it up, though. Speaking of Nicholas, this guy came and he showed true professionalism, and he was able to demonstrate his talents were unwavering. You might argue that the missed putts were some wavering, but I really feel like you could see on a lot of the holes match play style against Gannon and Burr. They were both, I saw fist pumps, the nod, the respect that was given back and forth there. What do you think about Nicholas? Short and concise here. Josh or Dion, how do you feel about Nicholas at this point?
Well, just watching it, he seems to have the drive, which a lot of these players do. This type of anguish that he just experienced may push him forward. All the greats in any sport face this type of adversity. I don't know if he will be a great, but it certainly was exciting to see. And, you see the subtext here, a major performer. I mean, he performed very well this year at the European Open and USDGC. And those are the hardest events to kind of show up at. So he has the talent. We'll see if he has the will.
Dion, any thoughts on Nicholas? I mean, what stood out to you?
Yeah, incredibly impressed by his performance. And the one stat that I'll use to highlight how impressed I am with him is that only one other player in the field had as few out-of-bounds throws as Nicholas during the entire week, and that was Nate Sexton, and they each had 5 throughout 4 rounds of golf. So he got it done by putting together a good game plan, playing golf, and executing his shots. So huge shout out to him. That just bodes well on having a high ceiling for himself.
Compared to Nate Sexton, I mean, that's incredible. Nate Sexton, Safeton, or whatever they want to call him sometimes, the fact that he only went out of bounds 5 times, and Nicholas did the same and was in it to win it. Congratulations to Nicholas, a European performer out of Finland, proud to be Finnish, he said. And his nerves, he felt, he's used to showing up at the top level in his own country. So here he was able to perform at the United States Disc Golf Championship. Let's move over to HENNA BLOMROOS. Now, HENNA has been showing up as of late. The talent was always there. It was not always on display at the top level. It is now showing through. HENNA has really impressed me with her play. Josh, do you have any thoughts on HENNA?
Yeah, well, as you see the subtext here on the screen, We were all excited this year after kind of, a really disrupted last few years, especially for international travel, especially in the FPO scene. We kept talking about the Europeans, which were several. We obviously know KRISTIN. We were excited to see HENNA and Evelina return. And then quite honestly, HENNA was almost a no-show in the beginning of the season. Clearly she was here, but really just underperforming. In fact, almost was not talked about after a while, and it was just thought, well, maybe she wasn't as good as we thought. And then in the latter half of the year, really stepped it up. And sometimes players go through peaks and valleys. Obviously, travel, all these things can disrupt the international player. But really showing us her potential. We've talked about it here before. Probably one of the top elite throwers as what we're seeing. If she can figure out the putting, which you have heard that storyline before, if she invests though, and that works out, I mean, she could be truly great and be right up there in the top 3 or 4 FPO players. But she's got to really turn that on. But still, really, congrats on a great year after really a slow start.
Were you impressed? I'm sure you were, Dion. Let me put it this way. Were you surprised at Henna's performance, especially towards the latter portion of this year?
No, not surprised. She is an elite thrower, and she represents, in my opinion, the potential of the FPO division. Because if she can do what she does off the tee and put together, as Josh is saying, some putting rounds or some mental fortitude and start minimizing mistakes, then this is the person who's going to be pushing for wins against some of the more stable and consistent players in the FPO field. So I look at her and I see how you should model your throw if you're a female player trying to become a top pro, because you have to be able to do what Henna's doing.
2020, I was able to be out the Las Vegas Challenge where Henna was performing with her friend Evelina, who we know as well. And I had the privilege of playing the role of catch cam for their throws. And I can remember being surprised. That was some of my first exposure to their performances in person. And I was really impressed. I'm glad to see that it's actually showing forth now. KRISTIN TATTAR is a name that comes up often regularly as a European competitor out of Estonia. Let me just put it this way. Her average finish is better than second place on her tour season. Better than second place. So that means you have a 1.75 average finish. I think we can just sum this up and say that KRISTIN TATTAR is performing at the highest level. In fact, this doesn't really actually mean anything, but Paige Pierce herself is saying that she is now not considering herself the best player in the world, which when a competitor comes out and says that, they're giving the nod to somebody else. And at this point, it's got to go to KRISTIN. Any disagreements or any other reactions or thoughts there, guys?
No, I mean, nothing to disagree with. It's just really a phenomenal season. We've kind of, commented on that throughout the season with many of her wins and podiums. And after round 1, you thought this may be the event where she kind of falls off and doesn't finish on the podium. And then we would all have to say, well, it wasn't an elite event, but we don't even have to have that argument. She came out and, finished in second place again. So yeah, truly, truly great season.
Any other thoughts on that? Do you agree, Dion? I'm assuming KRISTIN is number 1.
Yeah, I'll use this as an opportunity to highlight more of the HENNA conversation, which is I broadly lump disc golfers into 2 categories if I'm assessing their skill: throwers and golfers. And KRISTIN is the best golfer in FPO, and HENNA might be the best thrower. So
I like that.
If you want to bridge the gap as HENNA, you become a better golfer. And if you want to push the envelope as KRISTIN, you become a better thrower.
Interesting. I like that. And again, we're talking specifically about the category of European players here because Katrina Allen took down the tournament, and I think you would classify her right in that perfect balance as well. Great thrower and great golfer, a student of the sport, I should say. But wrapping up the European discussion here, you have Linus, Vino, Laurie, you got Evelina. I think I remember conversations about all these players, the unknowns pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then now that it was back open and they're here touring, we expect to see a lot more from the European players. All right, let's move over into our weekend takeaways. We're opening it up here, a little bit of mixed bag from the USDGC as well as Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship. Let's go ahead and put it out there. The course was looking fabulous. Dion, I know reaction pre-show, you had some thoughts on this. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I'm so proud of the crew there at the USDGC for pulling it off in the way that they did. The aesthetic changes that they made with the longer grass and the rocks was so necessary and makes both the viewing experience and, I can only guess, the playing experience that much better. So congratulations to that team. Well
Josh, your reaction's the same thing as Dion, or
yeah,
what
pretty much.
feel?
I mean, it's just some creativity, not necessarily truly novel ideas, but, you know, kind of embedding the rope in a, you know, a small groove in the ground. You already mentioned the visible greens and fairways. And, you know, as we're integrating certain shots in live coverage, like drone shots, where you can see the actual flow of the course.
Gorgeous.
And it's a real picture. It's not a digital graphic of a T sign, right? Which is, and so it was awesome. Obviously, yeah, the rock boundaries, some of those rocks came into play, right? And people bounced off and went different ways. Maybe you could just, you know, debate if you like that or not, but in the end, they were all there. Everybody knew what was going on. It made it very visible. You know, some interesting design changes on some of the holes, but when they design the aesthetic around that, it actually feels like it makes more sense rather than just seeing a circle of ropes in the middle of a field. I actually feel like I see the designer's intention. And that's pretty cool, right? Like it or not. Obviously, lots of other design aesthetics. You know, some you could probably take, some you could leave, as they always try some new things, like the cobwebs on the trees. I don't, but anyway, with that being said, overall, I think things were beautiful.
Yeah, speaking about the cobwebs, they disappeared after a few rounds. I do not have the inside scoop on that, but I will say, Josh, there were other changes here. The caddies, I'll call it a dress code, but they were required to wear a caddy vest, designating them as such. It looked clean. How do you feel about the caddy vest, Josh?
I mean, not a whole lot of opinion on exactly, you know, the vest per se, but the idea of professionalizing, and I don't know if I actually mean that in the truest sense of the word, but making it look like a professional aesthetic for caddies. It kind of cleans up the visible of who is just out there, what I'll call hanging out, which we see on a lot of other elite tour events. I know they've implemented, you know, caddy rules on who can be there, support players, caddies, but it just looks different. And you can argue whether or not that's needed everywhere, but at the U.S. Championships, I sure liked the look and the feel. It kind of made it feel exciting. And it's funny how something as simple as that can change the feel of the event. And obviously not that alone, but as you add all these things up, it does make a difference.
Dion, anything to add there?
Yeah, both the course changes, and they've been doing this, the caddy bib, for a number of years, right? So this isn't necessarily new to this year. I love the way they executed it this year. But all of these visual cues and changes point to modeling a professional presentation of the sport, similar to what we see in traditional golf. And that is a conversation we won't necessarily crack open tonight, but I am a fan of moving things towards an established successful model of professional presentation, which we already have in that
Can
sport.
we go to the full white coverall? I mean, that would just be spectacular.
They've done that in years past.
Yeah,
they've done that in years past.
They've talked about bringing it back, and I think this is a good balance for it. I mean, I have no reason to wish they don't do the full white coveralls. I think it would be interesting to see, maybe fully implemented across the whole tour. So Aces happened. This is entertaining for everybody. The one that stands out in my mind first and foremost is Paige Shue, 2018 world champion. She throws it in on hole 17. And the reaction just makes your heart warm. The celebration factor there was spectacular. In fact, Dion, you gave me right before the show at least one ace per round. And I think, Josh, you totaled it up, and there were at least 9 aces. I think one of them went to Silas Schultz for $2,500 on the triple Mando hole. So any reaction to the aces? How'd you feel? Was this more than usual?
I don't know the stats if it's more than usual. It felt more than usual. And, you know, the reason, or the only comments I really have about it is exactly what it says on the screen. Just aces are exciting. Matt, you already mentioned Paige's reaction. I mean, she qualified for this event via the Monday play-in opportunity, and then comes into the event and, is not really competing for the win, although she did play quite well, and then throws that ace. And that ace is exciting because of the drama hole 17 holds, but it's not really the most technical ace that's ever been thrown, but it's Paige's excitement. And that's kind of the thing about aces, right? Obviously, if they happen in a moment of actual competition, that's exciting, but just the pure joy for anybody. And when you watch it, you get the same feeling. And I believe that also showed up, as many of our aces now do, on ESPN's, top 10 Sports Center. So that's always exciting.
Yeah, the spotter on hole 16, I think, saw 3 aces, and the excitement, I think someone did a screen grab of that, and I've seen it circulating around social media, and the excitement and the flags in the air. I think one of them was Austin Turner, and I'm not recalling the others, but Dion, how do you feel about the aces? Were you able to catch any of them?
I did not get to see any of them other than Paige's, and I believe Jennifer Allen opened up her round on hole 1 with an ace. And I've seen some of the phone clips come after the event. I didn't get to see them live. Follow Statmando DG on Instagram and Statmando on Twitter, and I will tell you later this week exactly what the precedent is in terms of aces at major events, because this was above the norm.
Okay, awesome. Good. Yeah, go follow Statmando. All right, so let's do this. The competition. Every year USDGC rolls around, we talk about the epic drama. In fact, last week we did this. We spoke about having memories of specific situations, scenarios, the drama. Hole 17, we've talked about it all. This year did not disappoint. We're going to remember this one for a while. Gannon Buhr taking down his first in an epic battle, going 12 under par, and that includes a double bogey in the round. So the competition did not disappoint. Why does this course do that? Do you have any thoughts on this, Dion?
Yes. So this is probably the most famous example of iterative design in that we have in our sport, and the tournament staff take it seriously. Year after year, they make the changes, they make the adjustments, they try new things, they get the feedback, and they implement it. This year happened to be, in my opinion, the best execution of that iterative design. So props to the crew. I'll give them some early feedback. Combining hole 3 and 4, great idea and concept. Turned out to be a relatively pedestrian hole with 80% of the field taking par and only 2.5% of the field carding a birdie. So you can expect them to make some changes on that hole next year, or that section of the course. But they take the feedback and they implement it, and that's why this course always delivers, because it's handled with care.
Incredible competition there. Josh, do you feel the same thing about the course?
Yeah, I do. I've kind of been up and down over the years, probably along with many of our viewers, kind of getting caught up in the emotional reaction when they seem to do some silly things. But I think as I continue to watch this event year after year, I just come to believe, similar to what Dion has said, is, as we talked about last week, they're willing to try some new things, and maybe not everything hits. But when you continue to try new things, you eventually find better ways to do things. And as they continue to refine the course, I think it's drawing out the best. And because the players view it as, one of the best majors that they compete, to win, they all come out and play incredibly hard, as you'd expect. And as such, we see crazy, exciting competition. And the way the course flows from 1 to 18 also kind of brings that out, right? Especially 17 and 18. And we saw that again this year. And yeah, so I think we probably can expect something similar. This event does not have a lot of repeat winners. It just really brings a lot of excitement.
Yeah, that's true. I think we just crowned our 13th winner, a different winner. And also we're going into next year with the 25th anniversary of this event. I think there's going to be some special going on there. I'm going to look forward to expecting that we are going to have another drama and really spectacular competition and coming up. So let's talk about our last topic here for the weekend takeaways. We'd be remiss not to bring up once again the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship. I spoke about it earlier, saying it's a major, non-major. The meaning it's very large, but it doesn't crown the major title. Katrina Allen speaks of this as if it was a major competition. She says the value and the determination to win this was the same. And Josh, you've spoken on this many times, saying that if the competitors are treating it as such, then the title should have that much weight. How do you feel about this following Katrina's win?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about why and how it feels like a major. I did that some very early in the show, and so I'm not going to make that point. I think it kind of speaks for itself. You just summarized it. I'm just going to simply say, please, to whoever, let's not look back at this period of time. I know the event was really very young, so it hasn't been given a lot of time yet. But my point is, let's not look back at this and kind of regret wondering what we were actually trying to hold on to. And I say we, I mean rhetorically. Like, what are we doing by not making it a major? Is there something, right, is there some reason why not to? And I think there probably are some reasons that some people have, but I'm saying look at the big picture. Let's not regret that. The players view it this way. It can't be more frustrating than to actually look at the stats, right? Statmando, and have to qualify things because it's not a major. And that's frustrating to me as a fan. Because a major really is value that we put on an event. And when we say we, the organizations that lead it, the players and the fans. And in this case, all three seem to align. Even the PDGA is posting things that they don't normally post for an A tier, congratulating Katrina Allen for an amazing championship victory. So I say, let's just kind of make it official.
Okay, Dion, the simple answer that some may offer would be just to include the women in their own division of the USDGC. I don't think that's the right answer, and I think you would agree with that. How do you feel about this becoming a major someday?
I think it should be a major. I don't think there's any technical reasons why it couldn't be a major, right? If you're looking at the checklist of what constitutes a major, it certainly checks all the boxes. I also really like that this event has its own flavor as the throw pink, and it might be logistically hard to pull these events off at separate times. But if that is the sort of next step to sort of separate these events so that the men have a spotlight and then the women have the spotlight, that would be awesome. And at that point, if it's not a major, I'll run for the board again and start making some changes.
I actually feel like, and I don't want to misrepresent, but I'm pretty sure I heard that this event is actually getting shifted 2 weeks later. And I think it was due to the proximity of the USWDGC that was going to take place a few weeks before or a week before. So I think scheduling is going to show us some of that separation. And again, I think that'll really put the spotlight on saying like this should become. Now I heard the tournament director, Jonathan Poole for the USDGC, saying that they would be happy to facilitate that conversation. He was pressed a little further and saying, is this going to be? Have you heard conversations? Have you had this discussion? And he alluded to, without saying it, it seemed like there was some substance there. So I don't think it will be this coming year, but it sounds like the discussions are happening, and wouldn't be surprised to find that happen at some point. All right, we've talked through all of our topics. We've covered a lot. There's so much more we could have covered. Leave us a comment. Ask us what our opinions are on other things that maybe we missed. But coming up next, literally starting tomorrow, if you're watching this on Tuesday evening tomorrow, the 12th, that is the 12th of October. They're doing the qualifying play-in to the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. Yes, that's right. We've made it to the championship. So you can officially watch that qualifying play-in on the 12th here on DGN. You can then watch the actual championship itself unfold from the 13th through the 16th. It's incredible. Some argue that the people who made all the buys are going to have a disadvantage, but that's part of the excitement right now to see if they can come out swinging. We're going to have a new champion and 2 new champions, and they're going to be given $35,000 each, the winners. And the MPO players that just traveled down are going to make $2,500 as a minimum. This is the largest cash payout ever. And if I'm not dyslexic this time, Dion, I think it's $302,000 purse. Hey, this is incredible. I think it's Barbasol, right?
It is. Well, I see Matt and Dion not really Barbasol users, but look at this right here. So
looking great, Josh. You're making me think about it.
Yeah, the whole head and chin. All right.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Barbasol.
Everybody, we are so grateful that you tune in to check this out. We're coming close to the end of the season. Go out there and throw discs. You can do it all year long. Till next time, we'll catch you out there, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye.